It was an ordinary morning in the small town of Willow Creek. The air was fresh, the roads still damp from last night's rain, and children, full of chatter and laughter, boarded the bright yellow school bus parked outside the town square. Among them was Daniel, a quiet 7-year-old boy with curious eyes, who clutched his backpack tightly as he stepped on. He always sat by the window, watching the trees blur past as the bus carried him and his classmates to school. Parents waved from the sidewalks, unaware that within the hour their lives would change forever. The bus rolled down the familiar winding road that led through the valley, a route so routine no one ever questioned its safety. But hidden in the engine, unnoticed, was a small mechanical fault. The brake line had been worn thin, ready to snap under pressure. As the bus approached a steep downhill curve, the driver pressed the brake pedal. Nothing happened. His eyes widened in horror as the speed began to increase. The children, sensing something was wrong, fell silent. Daniel clutched the seat in front of him, his heart racing. The driver tried pumping the brake repeatedly, his hands trembling, but the bus only accelerated. Screams erupted as the vehicle swerved dangerously close to the edge of the cliff. The driver shouted for the children to hold on. But panic had already spread like wildfire. Some children cried for their parents, others closed their eyes tight. The bus hit a sharp turn, skidded, and then chaos. With a deafening crash, it broke through the roadside barrier and plunged down the rocky slope. Metal twisted, glass shattered, and the world turned into a blur of screams and crushing noise. By the time the wreckage came to rest at the bottom of the gorge, silence had replaced the chaos. Smoke rose from the broken frame of the bus. From above, villagers and parents who had seen the accident rushed toward the site, their voices echoing with fear and desperation. Everyone expected the worst. No one believed that any child could have survived such devastation. But somewhere inside the mangled wreckage, amidst the broken seats and shattered glass, a faint heartbeat still echoed. Rescue workers arrived quickly, their faces grim. They had seen accidents before, but nothing of this magnitude. The bus was crushed beyond recognition, half buried against rocks. Parents stood above, some screaming, some praying, others unable to move, frozen by grief. The firefighters cut through the metal with torches, carefully pulling out one lifeless body after another. Each discovery deepened the grief in the air. Mothers wept uncontrollably. Fathers clenched their fists in silent agony. The air felt heavy, as though hope itself had been buried beneath the wreckage. Then, just as one rescuer bent down to check under a broken seat, he froze. "Wait," he whispered. "I hear something." The others stopped working, straining their ears. Amid the crackle of fire and the groan of twisted metal, there it was, a faint sound, a heartbeat, a soft breath. They worked faster now, carefully moving the debris aside. The moment the rescuers lifted a bent piece of steel, they gasped. There was Daniel, his small body sitting upright between two crushed seats, untouched by the destruction around him. His clothes were dusty, but not torn. His face pale but unharmed. Not a single bruise, not a drop of blood. One rescuer lifted him out gently, expecting him to scream or cry. But Daniel was calm, his eyes wide as though he had seen something no one else could. The crowd erupted. Parents fell to their knees. Villagers gasped, and the rescuers looked at one another in disbelief. "How is this possible?" one whispered. The doctor on site examined Daniel quickly, shaking his head in confusion. No injuries, not even a scratch. A fall like this should have killed him instantly. This doesn't make sense. When his mother, Emma, ran down to hold him, Daniel whispered something that silenced everyone around. "A bright light covered me. It told me I would be safe." The words spread among the crowd like wildfire. Some gasped, some cried, some prayed harder. Was it shock talking? Or had something truly extraordinary happened? News of the miracle spread throughout Willow Creek within hours. The media arrived, broadcasting the unbelievable story. The bus accident survivor. A child walks out unharmed. Reporters surrounded the hospital where Daniel was taken for observation, while townsfolk gathered outside, hoping to see the boy who had defied death. Doctors ran every possible test. X-rays, scans, blood work. Everything came back normal. Daniel was perfectly healthy. The medical team admitted they had no explanation. It's as if he was never in the accident at all. One physician said, "Baffled." Religious leaders called it divine intervention. An angel must have shielded him. They declared. Churches filled with people who wanted to give thanks. Believing the town had witnessed a miracle, candles burned in windows, prayers were said in every home, and faith was renewed in a community that had been drowning in sorrow. But not everyone believed. Some skeptics suggested Daniel had simply been lucky, perhaps shielded by the way the bus landed, or the position of the seats. Investigators studied the wreckage, looking for logical explanations. Luck, one officer muttered. That's all it is, a 1 in a million chance. Meanwhile, Daniel remained quiet, speaking little, but when asked, he repeated the same thing. A light wrapped around me. It told me not to be afraid. His innocence and conviction unsettled even the skeptics. Could a child invent such a story so calmly? His mother, Emma, believed him wholeheartedly. She remembered how Daniel often spoke of dreams where he was protected by shining people. She now wondered if those dreams had been visions. As the days passed, the town wrestled with the meaning of Daniel's survival. Was it proof of divine power? Was it fate? Or was it something that science could someday explain? The debate only grew louder when survivors of other tragedies came forward, saying they too had felt a presence protecting them. Daniel, however, seemed less concerned with explanations. To him, the truth was simple. I was saved for a reason, he told his mother quietly. But I don't know what the reason is yet. Weeks after the accident, Willow Creek was no longer the same town. The grief of losing so many children lingered, but so did the unshakable wonder of Daniel's survival. His story was told in newspapers, on television, and even in other countries. Strangers wrote letters calling him the miracle child. Scientists continued their investigations, but none could explain why he survived untouched. Faith leaders held gatherings, calling Daniel's story a sign of hope for a broken world. Families who had lost loved ones in the accident clung to his survival as proof that their children were at peace, protected by something greater than themselves. Daniel himself lived quietly, but he was never the same. He often stared out of the window at night, whispering to himself about the light. Sometimes he would draw pictures of a radiant figure with arms spread wide, covering him like a shield. One evening, when Emma tucked him into bed, he asked softly, "Mom, why do you think I was saved?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Maybe so. You can show others that miracles are real," she said. And indeed, his survival had become more than just a story. It had transformed an entire town, uniting them in faith, hope, and love. Parents hugged their children tighter, neighbors became closer, and even skeptics admitted something extraordinary had happened that day. For the people of Willow Creek, Daniel's survival was a reminder that even in the darkest tragedies, light could break through. The accident would never be forgotten, but neither would the miracle. And as Daniel grew older, one truth stayed with him, that in the moment when death seemed certain, he had been held by something far greater than himself, something that told him he was meant to live.